Hey, thanks for joining us for Spirecast, the Monday after Easter. So, as a pastor, I know that that's pretty much the hangover Monday morning thing. Hope you had a great Easter weekend. What a chance we've had to celebrate. Glad you're here, Roger from Tulia, Texas. Glad to have you with us. If you want to just drop where you're joining us in from, love to have you in with us. We're grateful for that. A lot of good things going on. What I love about what we're doing with Spirecast is we're getting a chance to see some of the talks from last year's digital conference, and just get a chance to interact and engage with those. And of course, we had this time on Monday morning, but then we've been watching 500 to 1,000 people picking these up and sharing those afterwards. So thanks for being a part of that. We're glad you're here. The Spire Conference is coming up September 14th through the 16th, and looking forward to that. Robert from Elizabeth City, glad you jumped in with us today. And one of the things that we wanted to do, our board met and discussed, how can we help out ministry staff people in this? And so we're going to extend the cheapest price available for the conference. We realize this is still a challenging time and everyone trying to figure out what's happening with COVID. Chris, give us some highlights, though, about the conference this year. What's coming up?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Really, really excited about how Spire Conference is shaping up. Again, it's going to be September 14th through the 16th in Nashville, Tennessee at the Opryland Gaylord Resort and Convention Center. And we are excited to be able to extend that registration price through the month of April. So there's also some discounts for bringing your team that you want to take advantage of. There's really going to be something for every member of the ministry team there at Spire Conference. And so we're looking forward to gathering. We're looking forward to being together. For many people, it'll be the first opportunity they've had to gather with other ministry leaders and to really be able to share in that time together. So we're really looking forward to being able to be together in Nashville at the Gaylord Opryland Resort and Convention Center, September 14th through the 16th. You can sign up at spireconference.network. Again, that's spireconference.network. And hope you will do that and take advantage of this great price break opportunity.
Hey, this morning, what we're going to do is the very last talk we had at the digital conference this past fall was from Kyle Idleman. Kyle's the lead pastor at Southeast Christian in Louisville. Great communicator. We're going to watch the first part of his talk, and he closes with a great illustration. And I think coming out of Easter, it's just a busy time, and you all have been leaning in, and COVID's created all this angst. And I was watching our news late last night, and they were interviewing pastors from around the Metro Denver area, talking about some were still not meeting in our area, still not having physical gatherings, and so just want to get this bit of encouragement in this season that we've been through, and Kyle does a great job with that. So let's watch Kyle this morning.
The words of Jesus from John 16:33 to his closest followers. In this world, you will have trouble. Look, I know Jesus said it, but we still try to avoid it. It's just human nature. You try to still steer clear of the troubles in this life, but lately it just seems like there's nowhere to go. Every path forward seems to be a troubled path. And being a leader in this season, it reminds me of the first time I took my son snow skiing in Colorado. When we were there, an employee directed us to a lift that took us all the way to the peak of the mountain. We didn't know anything about anything, and we get up there, and we find out that the only way down are black diamonds, which are the runs for expert and advanced skiers. We were neither, and so we were more ready for greens and blues. These were all black diamonds, and the names of these trails were names like Devil's Drop, the Black Hole, Hell's Canyon, and my personal favorite was Body Bag. So I picked one. I had to pick one. We couldn't just stay up there. And about halfway down, my son, who was like 11 at the time, was frustrated with me. Like, why would you do this to me? You're the leader. You're in charge. Why would you choose this one? Why would you lead me down this trail? Why would you make this decision? And I didn't have an option. Like, there were no other options besides these bad ones. Like, what do you do when every path is a path that brings trouble. It's not like I wanted to choose the difficult one. It's that everyone was difficult, and I was just trying to find the one that was least bad. And there's just been a lot of that these past 6 months. I've just felt many times, I know you have too, many times as a leader where I'm trying to choose between devil's drop and body bag, and every path down is a difficult path. Every path down is trouble. And people say, well, why did you choose this one? Well, the others look just as bad, if not worse. Now, we shouldn't be surprised by any of it. I'm a little surprised that as church leaders, we seem to be caught off guard by the trouble of this season. I think that's part of what makes it so difficult. We weren't ready for it. And so here's what I want to do for the next few minutes is I just want to take you back to the upper room on the night Jesus would be arrested and crucified. So I want to take you back to the upper room in John 14. Jesus knew what was coming that evening. He knew he was going to be betrayed with a kiss, arrested and beaten and sentenced to death. He knew it, but the rest of them didn't. And so he's down to his final words with his closest followers, and John records them for us in chapters 14 through 16. This is a section of scripture that's often referred to as the final discourse. These are the final words of Jesus to his closest followers. And in this talk, Jesus wants to prepare them for what's coming because the future is not going to at all go the way they think it's going to go. It's not going to be what they were expecting. They were used to having Jesus with them like all the time. They were used to having him there to calm the storm or put the religious leaders in place or to win over the people, with his teaching and miracles. But he was going to be leaving them at least for a little while. And he wants his followers to be ready for the trouble that's coming. So that's the word he uses, trouble. And we see this word used throughout the final discourse where Jesus again and again warns them of what's coming. And so the discourse begins with Jesus saying in chapter 14, don't let your hearts be troubled. And it ends in chapter 16 with Jesus saying, in this world, you will have much trouble. And the word trouble is a severe word. There's other words that could be used for annoyances or frustrations, but that's not this. This is a word reserved for deep pain, for intense struggle, for overwhelming discouragement. And so Jesus begins and ends his talk by making sure they understand that trouble's coming. You need to be ready for it. And so what Jesus does in that final discourse is he tells them that there's going to be trouble, but then he says, don't be troubled by trouble. He speaks to the hearts of these leaders, these world changers, and he says, look, there will be trouble, but don't let trouble trouble you. Okay, so that's it then? Do you have a podcast I could listen to? Trouble is coming, but don't let trouble trouble me. That's it. Jesus says, don't let your hearts be troubled. And I guess I just expect him to give some kind of reason that is more informative. Maybe he would say, I don't know, don't let your hearts be troubled because I'm going to fix your problems. I'm going to change your circumstances. But Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus doesn't say, don't let your hearts be troubled because I'm going to make sure everything is really comfortable and convenient for you. Instead, here's what he says. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. So the word believe here, also translated trust, is the idea of putting all your weight onto something. Now, I know that, for most of us, when I say belief, it's just kind of an easy word to dismiss. It's a word we use a lot. So let me give you an image to help you with this. The image I would use is of a walker. You know what I mean by a walker? You might see somebody elderly using a walker where they put their weight on it, and then they take a step forward, and they put their weight on it, so they take a step forward, put their weight on. That's walker. And it's a pretty decent image for the word belief, because belief is what you put your weight on so that you can move forward. That's belief. What do you put your weight on so you can move forward? Whatever you put your weight on, that's what you believe in. And in this season, one of the things we've been reminded of is that if you put your weight on anything or anyone other than Jesus, you discover that it doesn't hold up. And I think there's a lot of frustration in our world right now. There's a lot of anger and division because what people are trying to put their weight on isn't working. And we want to move forward, but we put all of our weight on a political system. We put our weight on social structures or even on the Constitution, and it just can't seem to handle the weight of everything happening in our world. And so people become angry and discouraged and disillusioned because it feels like we're putting our weight on something that promises to hold us up and allow us to move forward, but it doesn't. And we get stuck or we fall on our face. And so the question that we're wrestling with is, do I really believe in Jesus? Which seems like a surprising question for us to wrestle with at a Spire conference. Of course I believe in Jesus. As a church, in seasons like this where we're facing cultural tensions and health threats, this is the time for us to double down on Jesus. For us to declare our go-to is the gospel, our creed is the cross. To tell people who want to be a part of a movement to change the world, we've got a movement for you, and our movement is his mission. In this season of trouble, that sometimes feels a little bit more like tribulation, we're going to put all of our weight on Jesus. That's what it means to believe in him. And so as Jesus talks to his disciples about the way forward, those are the two words that jump out in this final discourse. The two words are trouble and belief. In fact, in the first half of John 14, Jesus tells his followers to believe a half a dozen times. And when he tells them to believe, it's a command. Like he doesn't say, hey, here's a best practice for you. He doesn't say, here's a helpful hint. He says to believe. It's a command. And I know it seems a little bit simplistic, this message, to a bunch of church leaders. But look, Jesus decided that this was the message his disciples needed to hear. Again and again, he had taught them with parables and different lessons and messages, but when it came down to it, this is the one that he circled. He commands them to believe. Why? Because belief in your heart is what allows you to keep moving forward. Belief is what keeps trouble from troubling you. But it's a command. To not believe is a sin. It's the sin of unbelief. Unbelief is what makes trouble especially troubling. And so genuine and wholehearted belief in Jesus is what keeps us moving forward.
I love that start of the talk there from Kyle, and just appreciate so much that idea of standing at the top of that black diamond, knowing that there's no way out of it, right? That there's no way that you're going to be able to do anything but go down it and figure out how to stay alive all the way down. And really some great applications for, I know, this season that we've been through. Many folks that have come back. We just had a fantastic Sunday, and for many folks, it was the first opportunity to really start seeing the semblance of the body to come back. If we take ourselves back to the beginning of those COVID days, now about a year ago, it had to be a black diamond moment. And I know that that opportunity to look at trouble and to see trouble coming and to not know how you're going to deal with it is something that every leader has to deal with. And I know that there have been opportunities for you to see moments like that, Rick, in leadership.
Yeah, I think, one of the challenges everybody's got right now is just sorting out what's next, right? I think we used a line here a couple of times, extended ambiguity and sustained stress are just a combination for a lot of uncertainty for us. So, and we've got that, right? We're still in this moment of what does it look like? I mean, people are reporting their numbers and, we're at 50% pre-COVID or whatever that meant, on average. And Gallup just released a poll about church attendance declining. Actually, that was even pre-COVID. We saw some of that. And so I think what I'm watching, the leaders who are responding best to this are sorting out, in the midst of navigating the trouble, how are we keeping people focused on their relationship with Christ? So it's no longer about that weekend experience, right? We've had to shift and adjust around that. It's thinking in terms of what does engagement look like, and then how are we helping people find something they can anchor to? I love his illustration about the walker, because faith is always about trust, and trust is about the object, right? So what is the object of our faith? And I think we've gone through this disruptive moment in the life cycle of the church that actually is a moment for leaning into whatever's coming next. To look at things we were doing and ask ourselves, was that the right thing? Was it the most effective thing? Was it the most successful thing? Particularly on how we were measuring things, and now lean into what really is next, and how are we helping people find the object of their faith, right? How is that relationship with Christ? And it probably doesn't look like they're showing up on a weekend anymore. I mean, Easter was great at LifeBridge yesterday. It was nice to see people coming back, and it was great. And people are going to be longing, but I think we've also got to sort out what are the new tools, what are the new ways we're actually engaging people in this, because they're looking for something. I mean, I had a conversation this morning early out in the backyard with my neighbor who had his dog out there, and he was talking about just the difficulty he's seeing in his workplace with people. So challenges for us, but opportunities in that too.
Interesting thing about going down a challenging run like that, where you are afraid of it at the top, and as you start to work down, it really challenges you. It challenges you to maybe try some things that you haven't tried before. It challenges you to maybe be a better skier. And I think we've seen that from leaders all around the country. We have the opportunity to talk to just a host of folks. I know that this has caused a lot of folks to really change their trajectory, caused a lot of things to quicken, but it's also caused a lot of leaders to maybe change their direction in some ways, change some of the things that they thought were most important, some of the things that they were doing, and adopt some additional things or some changes and some adjustments. I know, Rick, you talk to leaders all around the country, and maybe you can just share what are some of those things that you see those leaders who have been able to adapt well, or who have been able to make those adjustments. What are some things that you see them doing that has really helped them become better leaders, helped their church in the midst of the troubling times? Maybe you can share a little bit about what you've seen be effective.
Well, I think it starts with, part of where Kyle was going was, where are you as a leader first? One of the things that I think is leaders who are not trying to do this solo, not navigate this on their own. So whether you have a team of staff members around you, or you, all of your leaders are volunteers for you, it's how are you engaging others in this process? There's been 4 questions we've been asking pastors really since late summer. What is it that you lost that needs to stay lost? What are things that you were doing pre-COVID that you're saying, maybe we don't need to keep doing those things. Maybe we don't bring those back. And what is it that you found that needs to stay found? So what are the things that you adjusted, adapted, moved to that you actually ought to keep doing? Figure out how that has a way going forward with you. For example, one of those is, we all had to go online, right? We had to create an additional service. And I'm watching a lot of leaders now have, as part of their regular weekly schedule, an at-home service, thinking about how are we making that more than just you're watching online? What's the engagement pathway to that? And I think the third question is, what are we welcoming back? So when we can be fully spun back up, what are those things that we're saying, boy, we want to make sure we do stay focused on that. But I think the biggest one is, how are you pivoting? And the most effective leaders I know are looking at their circumstances, because every community is different, every church environment's different. We're not all having the same experiences or opportunities even. But how are we pivoting in that? How are we actually thinking about, how am I leveraging this moment for this next opportunity? What is it we're going to be shifting into? And I think that's the wearisome part. That's the part that kind of, just takes a lot of our energy. So again, how are you not doing that by yourself? Who is it that you're connecting with? Whether that's other pastors or some on your team. And it doesn't have to be your whole team, right? But those individuals that you're working with that's saying, what are we doing in this moment to deal with this trouble?
I know there's going to come a time, hopefully quicker rather than later, where COVID will be behind us. And I know that there have been a lot of folks who have said, "Hey, when we come back, or when we get back to some sort of a normal," right? But I think the truth is that we're never going back, right? This is really an opportunity, I think, in many ways, for us to not only go forward, but to find new ways to stretch and to change that mentality from just a gathering concept to having multiple platform opportunities, multiple platform experiences, where literally every day that ends in Y is an opportunity for the church to engage its community, to engage in a variety of different ways. And we see some people pivoting and doing exactly what you're talking about, being able to have a service that is digitally focused, that's online, that's a communication between a person that may never walk into a building, but being able to always gather is something that we're going to have to continue to do. And really, I think that the opportunity for innovation is at our door. And this is one of the things that I'm really excited about as we have a chance to talk with other Spire leaders and Spire churches around the country. Just that opportunity to engage with the idea of innovation. How are you continuing to reach? How are you meeting the needs of your community? How are you stepping into some of those gaps? And I know that as we have the opportunity to gather at the Spire conference, there's going to be a lot of great discussion about how we look forward, how we look into the future, as well as being able to say, what are those present challenges? And then also, like you mentioned, leave those things that need to be left behind, and start walking into that new idea, that new concept. And I think, to Kyle's point, there will be new troubles, right? There will be new things that we have to face. There will be new issues that take our attention, and some of those might be regional, some of those might be situational. I know that in Boulder County, where you served for so many years, Rick, there were lots of issues and lots of things that came from time to time. And I remember the flood that happened that really changed our community, and some of the things that the team had to do and that you had to do. Certainly, it was a Black Diamond moment looking down into that. And maybe you can just share a little bit about looking at that trouble and some of the things that you and the team were able to do at LifeBridge that really stretched us, that really grew us, and that really changed the way that we went down that Black Diamond moment.
Well, in any crisis, whatever that crisis is, and we're in an extended crisis, right? So the pandemic is different in that it's been so far reaching, but it's where do we get to lean in? Is there an opportunity? And, can the church show up and care for its community in some practical ways? And so when the trouble comes, it's, do we run from it or do we run towards it? I think that's always a challenge as in a leadership mode. Do we find a way to engage what's going on? And so, when we were plugged in and we got asked by Boulder County Sheriffs if we could help be an evacuation center, and that led to us being a distribution center, which led to us doing housing, and then led to other opportunities for us along the way. I think what we looked for in that was, how do we engage and how do we connect? And does the church show up in that? There's a long old saying that says every time there's been a climate change on the planet, every organism either adapts or dies, right? So we've just gone through a climate change. And when we're adapting, doesn't always mean we're accommodating. I think sometimes we think, oh, well, we're just giving in or we're giving up. And that's maybe not true. I think in this opportunity to adapt, there's this opportunity to shift priorities, to shift the way that we're delivering our message. And I don't just mean the preaching or the service, but actually into our community. And I think people are looking for touch points. So now look at all the flood opportunities that are coming. Mental health issues are going to be substantive. Dealing with kids education and re-engaging there is a big deal issue that we can help. For those who might be in a lower income spot, who had service industry jobs, and how are we coming alongside that? Single parent households. I think there are a number of pandemic related flood moments, so to speak, that we could look at and say, hey, can our church engage that? Can we plug in? Can we be a part? And I think there's a great opportunity today for us to do that. So, what I loved about what Kyle had to say was just that trouble is a reality, and don't be troubled by trouble, like Jesus' statement, which is a pretty challenging statement for us. And I think as leaders, not only do we have to manage the trouble ourselves, but we have to help others through the trouble. And so there is this opportunity for us to do that. So we're glad you joined us today, here with the Spirecast. Chris, thanks for jumping in with us today on this too. And next week we'll pick up Kyle's second half of the talk, and he makes some really good points for us to lean into. Blessings on all of you. Hope you had a great Easter weekend, and looking forward to as you lean into the future. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.